Good evening and good to have you with us on this edition of the Urban Debate. Viewers, on Wednesday, we discussed the way forward for schools to hold board exams. We had examples coming in from Karnataka where the state exams are being held now. The big conversation was also about what CBSE and ICSE, the big nationwide boards, will be doing. We have more clarity now. CBSE and ICSE both have decided that the pending board exams will not be held in the month of July. Perhaps at a later conducive date, says the CBSE. ICSE is going to look at an alternative option for assessing students for the exams which were not conducted once the lockdown hit us. Class 10 CBSE exams have been fully cancelled, but as far as Class 12 is concerned, that is where the uncertainty and the confusion still continue. So let me tell you, pending exams won't be held in July for Class 12. CBSE says we will look at holding exams when the environment is conducive. Right now, there are many states, including Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, which are not okay holding exams in the state right now, which is why it cannot be done. There are two options for Class 12 students of CBSE. Either they can opt for an assessment based on their past performance in the last 3 exams, or they can wait to write the exam whenever CBSE decides to hold examinations first. Now, viewers, this is going to just add to a lot of confusion for a student to decide which way to go. Internal assessment, all right. When do those results come? How do they go about their further admission process? If they don't want that and they want to wait and give the exam again, well, we don't know when that will be held. If there are students who are choosing the second option of waiting for the exam to be held, what does that mean for their future? What does that mean for admissions into colleges? What does that mean for entrance exams? And remember, a lot of the entrance examinations have already been postponed and the dates have been announced for August and September and so on. Many of the colleges were also looking at starting their calendar year, new academic year, around this time in a few months from now. So tonight we thought one more time, we are going to sit and talk about this. We're going to get representatives from all categories who are linked to this entire issue, from students to parents to school principals to academicians and educationists, who can give us an insight on what are the options and how one should go about it. Here is what is still unclear. Will competitive exam schedule also be changed? Will colleges accept results based on previous exams? That's something that the colleges will now have to look at. As you know, it's highly competitive and board exam numbers and results still matter a lot for even the prestigious colleges across the country. What defines as a conducive environment for exams? If we don't know that, how will students prepare for this exam? When will it happen? How long do they have to wait? We don't know that part yet. Without wasting any more time, let's say good evening to the panelists who are joining us right now. Aakash Chaudhry, Director and CEO for Aakash Educational Services Limited. Dr. Singh, CBSE Counsellor and a qualified trainer, assessor and examiner. Advocate Arvind Tiwari, who is a parent, who's joining us this evening. Dr. Manjula Raman, Group CEO for Royal Concord International Group of Schools. They have quite a few schools, especially in the state of Karnataka. But first up, let me see if I can go across to Arya Sethi. Arya is actually a student of the CBSE and in 12th grade. And so Arya's life really depends on all of these conversations, what gets decided. And Arya will have to make some tough decisions now. Arya, what's your own sense? Basis the news that has come today, what are you and your parents now thinking?
We actually don't know. The situation is so confusing. Different statements coming. And we don't know if we can give the exams later, when the conducive environment will be there for us to sit in the examination hall and give the exams. And if we plan to go by the internal assessment, our internal assessments are not that good. We tend to work harder for the boards and not, as every student does, we tend to work harder for the boards and not for the internal exams. So we don't know. And as we know, the Delhi University applications have already opened up. They are friends, and there's a lot of confusion in our WhatsApp groups also. The WhatsApp groups are classes, and friends who are going abroad to study are very confused. We don't know what's to come next. We don't know where to go. for now, we're just sitting for something concise to come from the CBSE, which can give us a light. It's really affecting us.
Arya, what was your plan before lockdown hit us and before coronavirus hit us? What were you aiming for after the board exams?
For academically, I was planning to enroll myself for my history, bachelor's in history, and rest. I had plans. I am also
Okay.
running a media organization on my own. So those were my plans to expand that organization, and
Okay.
also academically, I was working on a lot of things.
Okay, and all of that now hangs, in the balance because there's so much uncertainty. You don't know if you can apply to the colleges, or if the colleges that you wanted to try for, are they going to be using internal assessment? All of that is what you seek clarity on, right?
So it's really stressful. Everything's in the back of the mind running. I cannot function properly on a day-to-day basis because everything's in the back of my mind. I don't know what's next. I don't know what I'm going to do next month. I don't know which college I'm going to. So it's all come at a standstill and we don't have an answer, and it's very, very confusing for us.
Yeah, I can imagine that. For most students, things get extremely active in class 12 in the run up to the board exams, and after that, you've got to figure out your life, where you want to go for your next set of academics and studies, and all of that is now in a mess. So I understand what you're saying, and I can imagine the stress that you may be going through. Advocate Arvind Tiwari also with us, though his son was in 10th grade in ICSE. Advocate Tiwari, there at least the exams have been cancelled, so you must be a little relieved today.
Absolutely, quite relief today, and I hope that the only other two problems get resolved also by tomorrow. That is one, the marking system, and also by when are they coming out with the results? Because we have an indication that by the first week of August, the junior college admissions would start. So we need to have the results at least by the end of July.
Yeah.
Is something that we need to be very clear about. So there are two things which are slated to be taken up in Supreme Court tomorrow, because my petition has now been transferred through a transfer petition filed by the ICSE board to the Supreme Court. So still not admitted, but we'll be there tomorrow. Let's see what develops. But I seriously need to say that what is happening right now is that we are coming out with complicated solutions to simple problems. That is what I feel, which from the prevailing situation, like what the CBSE has thought of and how they are going about this whole problem. This is a pandemic. This pandemic situation is across the globe. We need to apply our mind that every institution, every college, every university across the world is facing this situation. I wish to refer to the circular that was issued by the Cambridge board when they had decided to cancel the June examinations. In that circular, they have mentioned that not only them, but they have discussed with all the universities across the world, and they have come to this solution because every single university across the world has taken this kind of a decision to promote the children on the basis of average marks or whatever gradation system that they have come out with, which is and a very transparent and a very simple manner, so that they progress to the next standard. And also, it is not a compulsion, like you need to right now clear every student so that they can take a future step of taking admissions in university. If some student is not satisfied with the marks, you can hold a betterment examination in the later, whenever the situation is conducive, by giving an option that you can wait for eternally, which we cannot say that when that conducive situation will be there, and then keep waiting, and then spoiling that 1 year of that child is a very complicated problem which they are creating. And they need to really think on that part,
Yeah.
that we have to take a serious decision to clear those students right now, so that they can go ahead for their future admissions to whichever colleges they want to, whichever universities they want to. And if they are not satisfied with the marks, they can come back for the betterment exams whenever they feel they are comfortable with. That could be a solution to that. But I don't know why they are acting so bureaucratic at this moment and creating such complicated solutions for very simple problems, actually.
Well, actually, I also wanted to highlight that, Maharashtra was one of those states that said that we're not in a state to hold exams right now. The situation is such, and everybody knows, in cities like Mumbai and Pune, where half the city is hotspot areas and containment zones, how do you do that? How do the students really travel to even give the exams? Aakash Chaudhry, come in on this part. The fact that there are two options. Now, how does that work out for even the colleges and the universities? Will they accept the internal assessment marks? Can they really put it on the same platform as those who may choose to give the board exams at some point? We don't even know when the exams will happen. Do you think perhaps CBSE shouldn't have left it so open-ended?
No, I totally think that is the right assumption. I think leaving the entire internal assessment as the basis for admission into these colleges actually opens a whole new set of new problems, even for the students, parents, and even the education institute. What is the sanctity of the scores that will get submitted? And as you are aware, that most of the students do not, put in that much amount of effort in the, the internal exam that the schools conduct, and they also are preparing, with their one target that they will do exceedingly well in the board exams. Now that that option does not exist with them, a lot of students will be at a disadvantage because they did not take their internal exam seriously. I think, on the other hand, the colleges who will be taking admission are also shut right now. I think what I see right now from this situation is that the students should actually select a set of colleges and universities that they want to apply for. Unlike previous years when you get your score and basis the score, you apply for colleges. I think basis your passion and your need and the stream that you want to pursue, you should apply to those colleges and let that college give you back a mechanism that, okay, if you are interested in my college, this is the entrance test, or this is the assessment, or this is the statement of purpose I want from you. On the basis of that, I'll do my own assessment to allow you an admission into my college. So obviously, colleges will face a bit of a trouble in relying fully on the scores that will come out basis the internal assessment only.
Yeah, you're right there, and this is what Arya was also saying. It is a well-known fact that when it comes to the 12th class, a lot of students utilize a lot of that time, that 1 year in preparing for their entrance exams, and it's only the last few months that you actually start preparing for the board and give it your best shot during the board exam. So what do you do now? Are you really ready to go and apply for colleges basis your internal assessment? That's going to be tricky, Dr. Singh. How do we, tell these students? And if you say, okay, you are not comfortable with your internal assessment or earlier exam marks, then you wait for the next exam. But we don't know when that will be. It could be August, September, we don't know.
See, you're asking me?
Yes, Dr. Singh.
Yeah. See, there can be 3-4 options with us. Most of the examinations are already conducted by CBSE. Result is ready. It is only 10 to 15% subjects. Number one. Secondly, there are 3 kind of schools in the country. CBSE may plan to issue 3 kind of certificates, A, B, and C certificates. There are good schools whose scores are very authentic. So everybody can rely on those scores and the result can be declared accordingly. The C category schools, maybe there can be some options given to them to conduct a part of examination through IVRS system, through Google form, or maybe open book examination is maybe given, which they can solve at home and submit. Or maybe the college which is taking admission, they can conduct examination only in those areas where examination is not conducted earlier. That can be one. Secondly, one situation is so different from the normal days. So naturally, we have to think solution also in different way. So we all have to apply our mind. We should not have any fear in the mind. There should not be any demotivation in the mind of children. They can very well be adjusted. Later on, in case they want, college may take re-examination or schools may take re-examination. but that would be only 33% or even below that, right?
Right. Okay. No, but Mr. Singh, won't it be providing advantage to certain students who can give the exam, who have access to some technology, the others who will not be able to? It, basically you're saying we need to be prepared that there will be different versions and perhaps not a level playing field that we usually see.
But this is what I'm saying, that depending upon the situation, options can be exercised. So CBSE may also give option to schools. Schools also may come out with the proposals, what kind of facility they have, how many schools are ready to take their own examination plus examination of other children also. Open book test is very simple thing. Honesty certificate, maybe honesty pledge can be given to children. They may certify the parents and the students, and they can give open book test easily, if it is so required. First of all, it may not be required also.
Okay. Okay, all right. Let me bring in, our last panelist who hasn't spoken yet, Dr. Manjula Raman. What's your own sense? One point that Dr. Singh raised was that these are very limited subjects which were left. About 12 different subjects. A lot of them were electives or languages. So the problem isn't as grave. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think for the science students, usually about children taking the NEET or IIT JEE, it's always the main subjects, that is science and that is physics, chemistry, mathematics. Those are all over. We are just left with IP for the science students largely. And I don't think there should be any panic for anyone for that matter. And these 12 subjects which are left, I think even an online exam can be held at call, allowing the students to choose a day for themselves and doing it, or else the best of 4 subjects can be considered. And like one of the panel said, I think the should not panic. They should just choose their college now. And the colleges, if they don't have any faith in the school, certifying their students, because largely everything is going to be certified by CBSE, because the main subjects are all done in class 12. As far as class 10, I don't think anybody should worry. That's just a beginning to their choice of subjects as they move on. And the colleges should hold their own online assessment. They could give them, the intent, or they can ask them a project to be done. Each of the universities can have their own parameters to actually choose the students. But I don't think it's such a big problem because the main subjects are all done. But I would only say that I feel very sorry for students because they are a confused lot. Time is running out and they feel, when is it going to be normal? And colleges, once they have admitted their students, I think they should just go in and start online classes. They shouldn't wait for normalcy to come and face-to-face learning. So everybody should get on to the online mode, like most of the universities abroad, and just start the classes. Once the child has been admitted to their course on the basis of what the CBSE results are and their own assessment, I think the course should just start off and they should move forward and, relieve the children of this. Because the first child who spoke on the panel, I felt very sorry because being a teacher for almost 4 decades, I understand, the 12th class students, they have to make a mark for themselves, whether it's a girl or a boy. They want to choose, that's what their life is going to depend. And it's very important that the teachers, parents, society is with them, and of course the CBSE. And I'm sure that's the way forward.
Okay, but Dr. Raman, let me ask you this question. Internationally, when you talk about entries into colleges, from my own limited understanding, the system is very different. There is a wide variety of factors that are considered, projects, essays that you write, recommendations that come in. All of that takes months of preparation. Unlike that, in India, what we see for our higher education after school, it's mostly either entrance exams or your score in your board exams. And that's how everybody, till March 2020 was really working towards. Now, suddenly, if we change that, to what extent do you think students will be able to prepare and adjust to that so quickly? Won't that process itself take at least a few months?
No. What I feel is that they needn't go to the whole system as it is done in Cambridge or any other foreign university. They could even have an online multiple choice, test for them, which and it should be on demand. They cannot put a date because we do not know which state is under the thing. Can the child take that exam? And they could give a long, time for the children, multiple choices that they can choose a date and time for themselves. And it could be just a 1 hour assessment. What this university wants to see is that the marks that the child gets, it's almost the same as his own ability to enter to that course. So I would think they needn't go in for projects or essay writing because our students are not prepared as yet for that. They will need to be prepared for that. But they can definitely take a multiple choice because I think most of the students are, tuned for that. Because even our other exams are not very subjective. They are multiple choice.
Right. Okay. Let me quickly get a response from Arya before we go across to some viewers on the phone line. But Arya, you've heard Dr. Singh, who's a CBSE counselor and trainer, and Dr. Raman, also in the field of academics, runs a group of schools. Do you have a response to what they're saying?
Yeah, so I have a couple of responses. So the first thing is, when we talk of on-demand exams, how many question papers is the board going to make? This is the first thing. And the second thing is, this lockdown has brought everything down to privilege. Everyone does not have the privilege to go online. Online is not the right medium. Teaching is something that is so pure. Teaching is also an art form. So it is so pure that is something that cannot happen online. Pure teaching, where energies are transferred from the teacher to the student, from the student to the teacher, a symbiotic learning relationship. This cannot happen online. It is not a thing to happen online. And the third thing I had in mind was, yes, that's pretty much it. Learning cannot happen online. It's about privilege at this point. And how many exams is the board going to make for online examinations?
Dr. Raman, would you want to respond to that?
The CBSE, and this is just a stopgap arrangement. It's not going to be there forever. But rather than wasting time, when I said the online exam, it was for the entry into colleges, not really the CBSE, because most of the main subjects are done. I meant for the colleges, and then they could give an on-demand exam. Yeah.
Okay. Let me quickly go across to a few of our viewers who are on the phone line. Sunil is calling us from Kochi. Good evening, Sunil. What would you like to say?
In fact, my opinion is that CBSE, they should have gone ahead with the option of scrapping the exams, pending exams, instead of giving the option of giving the option of either going for exams later on when the system becomes conducive, or else they should have gone with the marks which they have scored in the previous 3 exams. They should not have given an option to the students on all these.
You're saying one of the 2 options they should have decided?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, all right. Fair enough. I understand your point, because giving 2 options just adds to the confusion, puts people on 2 separate platforms and 2 different levels, makes it even more complicated even for the colleges to then figure out what their policy has to be. Gayatri Anand is on the phone line calling us from Chennai. Good evening. What would you like to say?
Good evening and hi. So I'm of the opinion that CBSE should either take the decision of taking the aggregate of the 3 subjects or how many other subjects have already taken place through the boards, or worst case scenario, they should probably conduct an online exam. The reason I think the internal marks given by schools should not be taken as the final decision is because See, first of all, the difficulty of the paper, the way teachers correct, and then obviously we all know that in schools there will be so many biases, and also not to forget to mention the fact that during the internal assessments, the pre-board examinations were conducted, the JEE mains were happening. So many of the students didn't attempt the exams first or did not even have the entire time to prepare for these pre-board examinations. So they'll give their entire effort only during the board examinations, right? And for those who think that this is just one exam or two exams left, there are some colleges and universities who look at the total score. So while a student has performed really well in the first four subjects and has only gotten a very less marks because of the exam of the school internal marks, the total wouldn't look that impressive, right? So due to these factors, I feel CBSE could come up with a better idea where they look at board exam marks or probably, as I said, conduct an online exam.
Okay, thank you so much, Gayatri, for calling and sharing your views. Aakash Chaudhry, if I can come back to you, the conversation that we were having of what happens from here on, the fact that you have two different options being considered by the CBSE, how will that impact what colleges now work on and what colleges now decide? I mean, what would your advice be to the students who've enrolled into your services?
I think this is a matter of great concern for all the students who are in this situation. And as the popular thought is, the CBSE or the governing body should go for only one option. Having more than one option leads to a lot more confusion than having just one option. Then everybody tries to sort of align themselves or their preparation or their future towards it. And, conducting exam online, is easier said than done. In India, just about 25 to 26% people have internet access. In a country like India, if, 2/3 of your population, in fact, 3/4 of your population does not even have access to internet, how can you even give a very, very well placed to justified platform to those students? And I think if any decision has to be taken, the base has to start from rural India. How we're going to give access to them for a very fair assessment of their talent and their right to quality education as well as higher education is concerned. And when the students are in this situation, online education is an option, but it will absolutely negate and sort of leave behind a lot of students who do not have that privilege. Arya has already spoken about the privilege, but apart from that, it is also the concern that the decision making that is going to happen today will impact their entire career going forward. So I think this is where the government should come forward, the authority should come forward and take the decision in the majority of the country, not handful who have the privilege or access to some of the education.
Okay, the other point I wanted to ask you, Aakash, was about, the fact that there are different state boards and then there's ICSE and CBSE. Now, CBSE said two options. ICSE said, we will figure maybe an internal assessment. State boards, all of them are yet to take a call. Will that also make it more complicated for the, universities and colleges to decide how to go about it?
Oh, absolutely. I think if there are times where central government needs to step in and take charge of the situation, I think this is the right time. For example, as the government did it at the start of the lockdown, where everything was vetoed down and the central government has a very clear mandate, everybody followed that order and we were able to control in the initial days of the, the pandemic. And I think having a very different policy for each state or each board can result into a very chaotic situation where some students will be an advantage because their board exam happened, they have a higher mark, and some students who were assessed only on the internal assessment may or may not have the higher mark or the expected mark that they really worked for the last 1 year. And given this kind of situation, they will also be at a disadvantage for the exam they worked hard so for the entrance. That is also not happening. So their hope of getting into a good college which is not linked to their entrance exam will also go away and washed away, or they may be at a disadvantage to someone who already got an result. So I think there has to be some parity, the way JEE body had done, some percentile system, some kind of system, so as to sort of normalize this differentiation which exists in the state board or CBSE or ICSE but they all must follow one method so that the students are not let at their advantage or disadvantage because of the decision that the state takes for them.
Okay, Dr. Singh, that's the whole point. See, you've heard, everybody from students to people who called, viewers who called up, and other experts saying this. The fact that there are different decisions being taken, some decisions are not being taken, is only adding to the whole confusion and the chaos. Why couldn't we just have the boards come together, agree on one decision and just go ahead with that? Where is the complication here?
India is such a vast country, we cannot have one option. See, we have 41 boards. Even now, 4 central boards and remaining are state boards. So we have to create parity even in the central boards and the state boards. So there is some formula on which we work and we moderate their marks accordingly and we come out with the solution. Similarly, there are different kind of situations in the India. We cannot have one decision. Even if you take one decision, there will be litigations, there may be some arguments, and again, CBSE or the government may have to think. So they have, in my opinion, they have taken a wise decision. In case anybody is not satisfied, the option is given. So at the initial stage itself, they have given the option. That is one. Secondly, ultimately, in the long run, we have to have self-certification, self-declaration, honesty prevailing, national character, and open book examination. In many countries of the world, that throughout the year, whatever work is done, the result is based on the continuous assessment, not on the basis of one exam or 2 exams. So here also, ultimately, we have to think of that. Another point, see, in virtual classes also, we had different kind of situation. There are places where there is no connectivity at all. Even then, the classes and teaching learning is going on. There is the networking of volunteers. They are working as a bridge. They are helping. There is a poor connectivity. So there are another solution. The book sets are given to children. The volunteers are working as a bridge and helping on either side. So there can be many options in our country. We cannot have one option.
No, that's as far as teaching is concerned, where also I don't understand, Dr. Singh, because if the technology doesn't exist, we living in the big cities with the best of the broadband connections often struggle with our technology. It keeps failing. We can't hear, we can't see, voice keeps cracking. How are you expecting this to then work out in every part of the country?
No, but even then, this is what I said. One solution may not work because there are heterogeneous conditions. Therefore, we are bound to have options. And if you do not start with the options in the beginning, you have to create provision later on. So where is the choice?
Okay, 2 of our panelists want to make a point. Arya, to you first, and then we'll go across to Dr. Raman.
Yeah, so one thing I'd like to add into this big umbrella of conversation. This point is very important and it's about mental health. As partially passed out students from our school, we're really struggling at this point, and the school should come in at this point, come into us, talk to us, and check in with us. We have lost our connection with our schools, with our teachers, and we need to strike that connection again, because students, especially students from low socioeconomic backgrounds, they don't know what's forward. Their parents have invested money. So it is really important to check on both the students and the parents' mental health, and that's on the part of the schools. The school should come forward at this point, call us, make a connection with us, speak to us on how are we doing in this time and how do we plan to go forward. The school should guide us. So there needs to be a guiding light from the schools who will come in at this point and help both the students and parents to imbibe something to us, help our mental health situation at this point. The conversation needs to go on.
You're absolutely right, Arya. In fact, even in a non-pandemic situation, I think that's one of the biggest problems right now, that for youngsters, for teenagers, we don't address in schools and outside of schools, at homes as well. And obviously the crisis, the pandemic has made it worse, and the mental health aspect must be addressed. Dr. Raman, you wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I totally agree with Arya, because I think at this time, all the more important that the teacher connects to the child, helps him out, and tells him not to worry and move forward. I totally agree about that. And in our schools, we are doing it to a large extent. And I would say that for every educator. Well, when we say that when we have equity for everybody across our country, I think the nation has to be very, very, focused on spending time on television or radio to reach out with classes, with lessons. So that's the easiest way that we can penetrate. The best of teachers could come on TV. It used to be there earlier. Even now there is. But I think hardly any. But I think there should be channels, educational channels, totally dedicated, or at least the normal channels in the morning, maybe from 6 to 9, and then in the afternoon sometime, where the children get the best of teachers. And that would be one way. There could be community teaching, like, a small community in a village could have a TV screen or a big screen where children can come into the community hall, and they, even if they don't have TV in their respective houses, they're able to see it at the community center. I think as a country, we need to understand.
I take the point that you're making.
Cannot have a gap.
Yeah. Yes, okay. I have one viewer calling us from Hyderabad. Padma is on the phone line. Good evening. What would you like to say?
Madam, good evening. Actually, with this pandemic going on in our country, we are definitely fighting it. But what I suggest the board is, rather than, taking the internal assessments, because the level of intensity for the assessment, that might not be the serious. So they should try to take, an average of the board exams that have been conducted for the other subjects. Somehow that should be the board should take a decision on that, rather than taking the assessment, the 3 assessment. So that's what I feel, because, the seriousness now already, the children, my son is really, the date is not known. Every day there is a postponement and they wait. And, the preparation for this exam is exactly not that serious as they were in the month of February and March. So the board has to take a call of taking, an aggregate of the exams already conducted. So that is my suggestion for the board. Or, it is like a cat in the bush kind of thing. What happens, for us also and for the child also.
So let me ask you this question, Padma, because, some few of our panelists and, many others have also told me that when you start looking at the assessment based on previous exams, many students may be at a disadvantage because some of the schools set their own pre-board exam papers. They may be too tough, they may be too easy, it's not on the same levels. Many students don't, prepare as well by the time pre-boards happen, then the kind of preparation they actually do for the final exam, for the final board exam. And so they're uncomfortable, using that score to actually now go and, apply for universities. What would you say to that? Do you agree?
Absolutely. I totally agree, because that's what I said. The seriousness might not be there for the pre-board, you cannot expect on that. So it's better to take an aggregate on that. The entrance exams are also postponed. There is a lot of things that stress actually going on the child's mind, preparing for one paper and then entrance exam. So definitely I agree, because there is a lot of things that is involved in this. Because they might not, the child would have not prepared well, because they don't know, they would have not expected that this pandemic is going to happen and they're going to take the aggregate marks. Absolutely. The child would have, the paper would have been easy, very tough. The schools, CBSE generally gives tougher paper for the pre-board exam.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm completely out of time, so I'm going to thank Padma and all of our panelists for joining us on this conversation. I believe perhaps it's not something that CBSE or ICSE and the state boards can resolve by themselves. It's also important that universities and colleges, those conducting entrance exams, those looking for board exam scores for admissions, also come together and decide on the way forward. And the uncertainty should actually end sooner than later. It's already been several months. This is also taking a toll on the students. The uncertainty itself, what to do, how to go about it, is just going to make it worse. But if the colleges are going to insist on a certain amount of score, which is not going to be possible based on this current situation, they also need to relook at how they will conduct their admissions. These admission processes are supposed to start as well. For many it has begun, for others it will start from the month of August. Basis what? Can it still simply be just on the basis of your board exam results? Maybe not. A larger solution may be required, but whatever it is, everybody needs to come together right now and start looking at it. We cannot afford to waste any more time in this uncertain times, in times of a pandemic. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation.